Hey, it's Ted McGrath. Welcome to today's show. So I'm going to talk about MSTR and also why BMNR could be the next strategy only with Ethereum. And I'm also going to talk about how this plays into Wall Street being involved and why Wall Street is bullish on this. And I'm also going to talk about how stablecoins are a big part of this as well. So while I cover MSTR on this show all the time and I rarely introduce new things, I think this is an interesting comparison to look at from an educational standpoint on what is this new company doing with Ethereum and why one should pay attention to this. Not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice. Do your own research and make sure you make your own financial decisions. Now, I'm jumping in to share this with you because I think this is very fascinating. If we look at the backstory of this, and again, mind you, I am big into Bitcoin. I am big into MSTR. None of this is financial advice. And I also have invested in BMNR. Now, I know it might come as a shock to some people because I cover Bitcoin and strategy, but I am looking at the facts on this. And I think that this is a very, very, very interesting play. And this is just purely educational purposes for you today, and that's it. So we're going to do a comparison. If you look in 2020, strategy, also called MSTR, shocked Wall Street. They took their company cash and they turned it into a Bitcoin machine. Back then, people thought they were completely crazy. Today, they have 628,000 Bitcoin and counting, worth over $73 billion at today's price of $117,000. Now, there's a new company trying to do the same thing. You may have heard of it. They're trying to do the same thing with Ethereum. It's called BMNR. It's short for BitMine Immersion Technologies. They bought 833,000 Ethereum in just over a month. So that's like $3 billion worth of Ethereum. And because the price of Ethereum is going up, it's more than that. So they are now the largest corporate holder of Ethereum in the world and the third largest public crypto treasury overall. So why is this interesting? Because this is a similar play of what we saw MSTR doing years back. And I think it's a fascinating move to pay attention to and understand what's actually happening in the marketplace with traditional finance and the crypto world. It is changing. It is changing fast, and it's changing right before our eyes. And I would be remiss not to introduce this opportunity from an educational standpoint purely to take a look side by side and take a look at the comparison between MSTR and BMNR. Not to say like I'm not still betting on MSTR personally. I'm all in on MSTR, Bitcoin, but I like what BMNR is doing. And the fact that Tom Lee is behind this, I like this very much as well. So if we take a look and we look at Ethereum and BMNR being the third largest public crypto treasury overall, today I'm going to show you why Wall Street cares. Why are the big players moving in and why BMNR could be the MSTR of Ethereum. So let's start with strategy. August 2020, Saylor said the company was putting $250 million of its cash into Bitcoin. People called it really risky, but they stuck with it. And if you look at Strategy's play, over time, they've raised money through stock sales. They've raised money through all of their new credit instruments of Strike and Stride and Strife and so forth and so on. Their newest one, Stretch. And they kept buying Bitcoin. So we know now the Strategy has, $46 billion of Bitcoin that they bought, worth $73,000 in terms of an average price per coin. And their holdings are worth $73 billion. Okay. So in terms of Bitcoin. Now, in the second quarter alone, if you look at Strategy, they've reported a $10 billion in net income, most of it from unrealized Bitcoin gains. So the kind of lesson here as we stack these two things up, MSTR, BMNR, the idea on this is Strategy went all in on a scarce asset, which is Bitcoin. And we're now looking at this new company, BMNR, or this new play, I should say, by BMNR going in on Ethereum as a play on an asset. Okay. So if you look at BMNR, let's talk about it. In June 2025, you might have heard of this announcement already. They went in on a bold plan, and their play is like, hey, we're going to own 5% of all the Ethereum in existence, right? Does this sound familiar, right? I mean, Strategy is going after 5, maybe 7% of the market share with Bitcoin. So now BMNR comes out and says, hey, we're going to go after 5% of the Ethereum marketplace, which is pretty interesting, right? So hold on one sec. Let's see what we got here. Nope. Okay, good. So you take a look at this, and this is like an interesting development here, okay? Because they're modeling what Strategy did with Bitcoin, and they're doing it with Ethereum. So at the start, this company BMNR, they had 0 ETH. By August 3rd, at 6:30 p.m., they reported 833,000 ETH in the treasury. So they paid an average price of $3,491 for their Ethereum, and totaling $2.91 billion. Right, that's a big acquisition, right? If you take a look at Strategy, has bought $43 billion worth of Bitcoin, roughly. Right out of the gates, this company BMNR buys $2.91 billion worth of Ethereum. So who's this Tom Lee guy? In case you don't know him, he's the co-founder of Fundstrat Global Advisors. He became chairman of the board, and he brought in some big names of this. These are like blue chip names, and this is one of the reasons why I paid attention to this and really have been following this and researching it, because if you look at the names involved in this, this is a pretty big play. So he brought in Bill Miller III. He brought in Kathy Wood from ARK Invest. If you know Kathy, she's talked a lot about Tesla in a very, very big way, and is, touts Tesla all the time. She talks a lot about Bitcoin as well. The Founders Fund is another group that invested in BMNR. If you've heard of Peter Thiel, he's one of the PayPal co-founders. Pantera Capital, they're an entirely blockchain focused investment fund, or investment group, I should say, and they're focused on Ethereum, and they're focused on Bitcoin in a big way. Kraken, how you say it, you know of Kraken, Digital Currency Group, Galaxy Digital, and more. So there's a lot of big money that's backing this play, which is extremely, extremely interesting to me on it. Okay, a lot of big money backing the play. So here's why Tom Lee's name matters. And if you want a little piece of this, I showed this yesterday, but I think it's good to take a look at what Tom Lee says about Strategy. So he's a big proponent of Bitcoin, big fan of Strategy. So you can hear what he says about Strategy as I get into who he is a little bit more.
Michael Saylor is changing the reality of the stock market. And the reason is that he probably will end up being potentially the largest company in the stock market, okay? Especially if Bitcoin goes to 1 million. Yet he doesn't generate GAAP net income to justify it. He's based solely on the value of his balance sheet. And but that's not new to history, because when I graduated college, the biggest stock in the S&P, a top 5 name was ExxonMobil. And it was top 5 for 28 years, 30 years, like an entire generation. Graduated, worked on Wall Street. A top 5 name was a company that was only valued on the value of its oil, not on its net income. So like MicroStrategy is like replacing Exxon in lore, because, for a whole generation, people said Exxon was the biggest company, but you don't value it on earnings. Well, MicroStrategy could be one of the biggest companies in the world, and it's valued on its Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? So Tom, just to give you some history on Tom, so you know who he is. You probably seen him on many, many news channels. He's been promoting this play with Ethereum recently for the company BMNR. But he's also predicted Bitcoin way back early on. He's the founder or co-founder of Fundstrat Global Advisors. So it's one of Wall Street's most respected independent research funds, or firms, I should say. And he's been covering the markets for decades. So first as JPMorgan's chief equity strategist, and then, running his own shop. But here's the kicker. He was one of the first mainstream Wall Street analysts to call Bitcoin a buy. So back in 2013 and 2014, when Bitcoin was barely over $100, he was already saying it had huge potential. And I was watching an interview with Tom last night, and the number of people that said that he was crazy recommending Bitcoin back in the day. And the number of people said, what are you talking about? You're actually putting money in this. You're recommending to people put money in this. And he even said that he lost certain clients because they thought, like, what are you doing with Bitcoin? But he felt very strongly about it. And he's been a voice for Bitcoin in the Wall Street world. And although he didn't invent the terminology of digital gold per se, he really pushed that storyline through Wall Street. So he's a big influence on Wall Street. And that's why the big money has backed him with this strategy, a BMNR, buying Ethereum as part of their corporate treasury. And he's got big money behind this. So it's very interesting to take a look at it. The reason I share it with you today is, like, when things like this come out, we need to be aware of it. There's 147, or there may be 170 now, Bitcoin treasury companies. I'm not sitting here talking about all 170. I barely mention any of them on the show. But when I look at something where somebody's pioneering kind of a new way in the space, and he's doing this obviously as kind of a copycat, and this is not a degrading term I'm using on how he's doing it and copying MSTR. He's just taking MSTR's playbook and he's directing it towards Ethereum. And the reason why I'm interested in this is because of why this makes sense with Wall Street, and why this makes sense with what just happened in the stablecoin marketplace with the Genius Act. And I'm going to cover all of these things. So pay attention to this, because interesting. Again, I'm not saying invest in this at all. Full disclaimer, I am invested in this stock. And I'm just telling you full disclaimer on that, but I am not saying do that. Okay. It's anything that like this is highly, volatile. Strategy is extremely volatile. Bitcoin's volatile. And this is even more volatile, but I'm just sharing it because it's important to be aware of how I think this is changing the economics and the financial world of Wall Street as well. Just like Sailors changed it, I think this move is going to change it, and I'm going to show you why. Okay. So again, Tom has been spot on with his prediction on Bitcoin. And he's been spot on calling a lot of plays. Like, he called Tesla before it was parabolic. He called NVIDIA before it became like the AI chip king. And he called many S&P 500 rallies that other analysts totally missed. And, Tom was spot on recently, where people on Wall Street have been freaking out and they've been quite bearish. And they thought when the tariffs hit, oh my God, the tariffs are crashing the market and we're going to go into a recession, or we're in a recession. And Tom's held the line saying we're not in a recession. And he's held the line saying that the S&P, even though the tariffs dropped it, it would recover. And it literally did a V-shaped recovery. It went boom and up, right? And look at the S&P right now. So this guy is legit. I really enjoy watching him, and I respect what he's doing. And so when the announcement came out that he was doing this with BMNR and all the big investors they're in it, I started researching it and paying attention to it. And so, he's not just a Ethereum guy. Tom loves Bitcoin, but he does understand Ethereum's role as, programmable money and the backbone of tokenization. And we're going to talk about what that means specifically today. And it's super important, like really important. So when he backs a crypto play like this, it's something to pay attention to. And it's why Wall Street is paying attention too, because of his reputation on it. And so why Ethereum and not Bitcoin for Tom? okay, in terms of what he's doing with BMNR. Obviously, he's big into Bitcoin as well. So if you look at Ethereum, it's like the operating system for crypto. And I'm not lost on the fact that, Solana is much faster than Ethereum. And, many people have been talking over the last year or 2 years how Ethereum's dying and it's slower and so forth and so on. But there's a case here for why Wall Street favors Ethereum and will favor Ethereum. Okay. And we're going to look at this right now. And so when Wall Street gets behind things, when you look at large institutions like the Bank of Americas and the Fidelities, why they're going to get behind this because of what happened with the Genius Act and stablecoins, I pay attention because I'm looking at where the money's going. All right. And we could sit here all day and argue why Solana is a better technology than Ethereum, but where is the money at? And where is 70% of the stablecoin market at? It's on Ethereum. Okay. 70% of the stablecoin market. So let's just look at this because I follow logic, and this to me is logic. Okay. So when you look at most stablecoins, digital dollars like USDC, USDT, they run on Ethereum. And most decentralized apps like finance apps, NFT markets, games, they're built on Ethereum. So Wall Street wants to tokenize assets. What does that mean? All right. We all know that Wall Street per se is slow because it's open, 9 to 4? Or if you get the early markets, you can open up as soon as 7 o'clock or even 4 o'clock Eastern. And then you can go to 8:30, but it does not trade 24/7, 365. One of the reasons why we love the blockchain is the speed and the security of it. All right. And so you look at what's happening with the Wall Street currently, who loves making money. It's slow. Trades are slow. Settlements are slow. You cannot compete in a world that's running 24/7, 365. If you're the old world of finance and now you have the new blockchain that's running 24/7, 365, and you love making money, which Wall Street does, if you could have trades going on 24/7, you'd be stupid to not get in the game. So what they're looking for is a trusted source to get in the game. And Tom Lee becomes this bridge as the trusted source because he's been a trusted source on Wall Street. And so he's bringing this new idea of BMNR, which has Ethereum in its corporate treasury. And Wall Street's paying attention to this. And also, we're going to look at some things of why Wall Street would trust Ethereum over other chains like Solana and so forth and so on. Okay. Just from the viewpoint of this company here. All right. So when you tokenize something, that means they can turn stocks and bonds and real estate, and they can turn it into blockchain tokens. So those tokens then can be traded 24/7, 365 instead of just during market hours. So most of the tokenization is already happening on Ethereum. And every transaction that takes place on Ethereum pays gas fees in Ethereum. That means more activity equals more demand for Ethereum. Now, if you've been looking at Ethereum over the last several months, I mean, it was sleeping, right? It was sleeping big time. And it's now up at $4,200, the price point of it. So it's all of a sudden waking up. And from 4 years ago, Ethereum was trying to get back to its all-time high, which is about $4,200, and it's literally just hitting that back where it was in 2021. And it's trying to get past 4,000, which it just did on Friday, because in December it was at 4,000 and it hadn't got back to 4,000. So now it's over 4,000. It's at 4,200. So it's coming to life, and here's the reasons why I think. One of them is BMNR and Tom Lee getting behind it, and the big announcement of $3 billion in their treasury of Ethereum. But Ethereum also allows programmable money. So this means that you can set the rules for money to move automatically with no middleman. Now, I know this is not a new concept, but I think this is very relevant because this is why Wall Street's paying attention. This is one of the reasons as well. So just examples of this, like to make it very, very, very simple. So if someone sends payment, a smart contract can automatically send them like a concert ticket. So it kind of eliminates the middleman, like, hey, send payment, and you can program the rules so that like a ticket just gets sent to somebody. Or if rent is due on the first of the month, the payment moves instantly from your account to the landlord. There's no paper, there's no delays, there's no bank. This is possible because of smart contracts. And it's like programs stored on the blockchain that can't be changed once they're live. So that makes it secure, transparent, meaning you don't have to trust a third party, you just trust the code. And literally, you could set it up like these things will happen in the future where like somebody doesn't pay their rent and it's like the rent's being paid on the blockchain and somebody doesn't pay their rent and literally like it instantly sends a message and locks the person's door and they can't get into their place. Like legitimately that could happen, So this is just technology moving smarter, faster, without the middleman, without banks, in a way where we're moving into a new world. So it's fascinating to see what's happening with this. And it's, again, this is not a new technology that exists with Ethereum. This has been the story we heard back in 2021, but Wall Street's paying attention. Okay. And Wall Street is paying attention. And the Genius Act that just passed is a big deal with what's happening of Wall Street getting involved, the banks getting involved, the brokers getting involved. And I'll give you some specific examples on this. So here's why they're paying attention. So if you look in July 2025, the US passed the Genius Act. So in simple terms, what is it? It's the first federal stablecoin law. So it requires basically that stablecoins be backed 1-to-1 with US dollars or short-term T-bills. And the issuers have to disclose their reserves every single month. So this is really, really big because it means that stable coins are now directly tied to the US dollar and treasuries with federal oversight. So now, let's just explore this for a second. The dollar is now tied to stable coins. Do you think this excites the banks? Do you think this excites Wall Street? The fact that the dollar, as the stable coins, more and more stable coins get issued, that means more and more stable coins need to be backed by the dollar, which is the law of the Genius Act, or backed by T-bills. So as more stable coins get issued, that means the US dollar is going to get stronger. And so do you think that people like Trump and large institutions are excited about this? Yes. And why is it exciting for other players that might be like standoffish? You have Wall Street banks like you have Citigroup, Citibank, you got JPMorgan, you got Bank of America. They love this because now they can use stable coins with clear legal rules. There's regulation and they're getting in the game. And here's where Ethereum comes in. As of March 2025, Ethereum hosted about $132 billion in stablecoins. That's over 70% of the entire stablecoin marketplace. So what is that saying? US passes a law, the Genius Act, stablecoins have to be backed by the dollar. The majority of stablecoins are on the Ethereum network, 70%. Makes Ethereum stronger, makes Ethereum the play. Make sense? Makes Ethereum trusted as a result of this. So it's very, 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 very interesting. All right. Now, in February 2025, Ethereum processed about $4.1 trillion in stablecoin transactions in a single month. Lots of trading in and out and movement of money. So if Wall Street moves into stable coins, where do you think they're moving? They're moving on to Ethereum. Simple. Why Ethereum? Ethereum is trusted. You've got 10 years of security. 10 years of security. You have a track record. They're not going to move on to some new platform for the most part that's not trusted, that's not secured. It also hasn't been hacked. It also has never been down. It's been up for 10 years. So it's a big deal. And that's why I'm paying attention to this. And what you've seen on Ethereum, because you've probably heard from, through the grapevine of like Ethereum, it's slow and it's this and its technology is not as good. But you got layer twos that are coming on top of Ethereum. And basically a layer two, like you have Ethereum as the base, and then you have layer twos that are built on top of it. And so layer two basically makes transactions faster and cheaper, but you still get to use Ethereum's security. So when you look at companies like Coinbase has moved some of what it's doing onto Ethereum. They have a layer two, it's called Base. And why are they doing that? Because inside Coinbase, if they just use their accounting principles, you have a central point of failure inside Coinbase. So now what they're doing is moving. They've got this layer two that they built on top of Ethereum called Base. Their customers can go there. They can have faster. It can be faster. It can be cheaper than Ethereum, right? Because it's a layer two on top of Ethereum. So it's faster, it's cheaper, but then they get to use the security of Ethereum underneath it to where the transactions can be stored, and it's immutable. It can't be changed. It's secure. And that's why people are moving there. And that's why Coinbase moved in on it. Okay. So Coinbase, I believe that the play is, based on what I've researched, is for security. And also they're going to where the liquidity is. That's where the money's going too. Lots of money going into Ethereum, lots of money that already exists on Ethereum, lots of financial apps that are already on Ethereum. So it's a big deal. Very big deal. Look at Robinhood. Robinhood, same thing. Robinhood has a layer two. Why? Security. And they can take basically what's happening with their customers right now. But the main reason why Robinhood's moving to Ethereum, and they're creating their own layer two. So basically when they create a layer two, they get to use Ethereum security underneath, but they're creating a layer two that for their customers is faster, it's cheaper. But ultimately, they get to use the security of Ethereum underneath, but they get to keep their brand on top of it. So it's a better technology, number one. Number two, and this is big, and this is different than Coinbase, because on Coinbase, you're trading crypto, which is 24/7, 365. On Robinhood, not the case. Robinhood, you have stocks. Okay. So Robinhood's going there because they have the ability to tokenize stocks, which means that people who are trading on the Robinhood platform that can only trade stocks from 9 a.m. to 4:30 or the pre-market 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. now can then trade stocks 24/7, 365, which is why Robinhood went and built a layer two on top of Ethereum. See what I'm saying? So it's like, Wayne Gretzky, a great hockey player back in the 90s, used to say, he says, I skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. And if you look at where the puck is going, based on the Genius Act, based on Robinhood, based on Coinbase, major players, based on blue chip investors, major investors that just invested in BMNR, which is holding treasury on their balance sheet, based on Tom Lee, who is now the leader of this movement with BMNR and a trusted Wall Street voice, the puck's going here. Not financial advice. This is just a theoretical conversation right now of like back in 2020, I spotted MSTR. Back early in 2024, when MSTR was at $79, I aped into it big time. So when I see things, I just pay attention, and I'm like, this is one that's standing out for me. Okay. Not because Ethereum's not a new concept, you see, but the fact that the Genius Act just passed, number one. And number two, the fact that you have Coinbase, you have Robinhood, and the fact that BMNR just loaded up on $3 billion worth of Ethereum, I'm paying attention, right? And I'm not a maxi in one area or another. Like, I love Bitcoin, I love strategy, but I pay attention to good ideas and smart people. And I think Tom Lee's onto something big here, like very, 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 very big. Okay. So you have these layers two, layer twos. I told you Coinbase launched on there. We got Robinhood on there. And the cool thing is these companies like it because they keep their own brand in front of the users, but they can cut costs and they still get the 10 years of Ethereum security and the immutable ledger. So here's the part that Wall Street loves. And this is a big point, and I want you to get this point, right? So staking, right? Staking means locking up Ethereum to run validator computers that check transactions. So you get paid in ETH for doing it. So if you stake your ETH, you get paid in Ethereum, and you get paid in about 3% a year. So when you look at what BMNR is doing, there's the talk and conversation that the $3 billion of Ethereum that they have, there's going to be some staking in this. Okay. And the fact that there's going to be some staking in this makes it super interesting, because if, let's just say they do some staking, we'll do some quick math on this here. They've got 833,000 Ethereum. Now, on staking, you get paid out about 3% in ETH per year. So this becomes an income stream, right? So 833,000 ETH at 3% would get you about 25,000 ETH per year. So at today's ETH price of $4,200, that's about $105 million in annual income without selling a single ETH. So we're talking about income coming in on a regular, consistent basis if they stake their ETH. Make sense? If ETH goes to $10,000, and I'm not saying this would at all, this is just hypothetical. I'm not giving any financial advice. I'm not saying invest in anything. I'm just doing hypotheticals because this is a story that I think needs to be told, okay? If ETH goes to $10,000, the same yield would be worth $250 million a year. The same yield meaning 3% based on the staking, 3% paid out in ETH would equal about $250 million a year. So Wall Street likes this, right? Why does Wall Street like this? Because if you kind of look at this, of why Wall Street likes this is because it's kind of like this bond paying 3%. Now, mind you, if the activity goes way up on Ethereum and the platform goes way up, this interest could go from 3% to 4% to 5%. And Wall Street loves this because it's kind of like a bond, right? You do some staking, pays out 3%. It's kind of like a bond payment, 3% bond payment, but it has the upside. So if Ethereum goes up in value, again, the staking is just the 3% that comes in perpetually. But then if the Ethereum price goes up in value, just like it did in the last month from 3,500 to 4,200, then you get the upside of the Ethereum. And we know Wall Street loves consistent fixed income, and then they like the upside of things too. So this is just, it's interesting, right? Interesting. So, so somebody's putting here, if Ethereum stays at 4,200 BMNR at 2M NAV, the price should be 62.32, right? Yeah, we're at 52 right now for BMNR. That's right. So we can say potentially what the MNAV might be, and I'm just going to give you a point on the MNAV of how Tom Lee's breaking this down. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple bullet points. So Tom Lee says, based with the MNAV on BMNR, he says one of the things you need to look at if they are staking, then you have this 3% income stream. And so when you have an income stream, he says you put a valuation on this of potentially a 20x multiple on the income stream. So that 3% at 20x becomes about what? Instead of a 1 MNAV, right? Because you just look at a 1 MNAV, they have, the assets on their balance sheet of Ethereum in their corporate treasury. So it's sitting there. So he says automatically, if you do 3% staking and you put a 20x on it because it is income coming in, right? Then you would automatically go 3 times 20, 60, you will go to 1.6 on the MNAV. But then what Tom says, and I'll send, there's a video you should look up online. It was done by Bankless. So it's a YouTube channel called Bankless. Super fascinating. Check it out. And it's an interview with Tom Lee, and he talks about the MNAV potential of BMNR. And so one of the things he says is based on the 3% staking, the math I just did, then you automatically get to a 1.6 MNAV. But then he says you need to look at the velocity, the speed at which they're accumulating. And so the speed at which they're accumulating their Ethereum is fast, man. It's fast. And we thought strategy was accumulating Bitcoin fast. BMNR is accumulating Ethereum at a faster pace. So based on the velocity, he says the MNAV would go up more. Then the other thing that you need to look at is that BMNR is traded. It's traded, and the ranking among U.S. companies, I'm not going to give you the exact, look it up, but it's super high in terms of its trading volume, super high. So the liquidity on the stock and the amount that's traded in and out is really, really high as well. So you're looking at something here that is, again, this is something to pay attention to. I'm not saying at all, okay, invest in this at all. I'm just doing a comparison of MSTR to BMNR. I love strategy. I love Saylor. I love what Saylor's done. I think he's brilliant. And I saw it early with him, and I just knew. And so when I see something come along like BMNR with somebody like Tom Lee, who I respect, and the players that are involved that are paving the way and becoming a behemoth in corporate treasuries with Ethereum. And right now there's about 12 companies that have Ethereum on their balance sheet, but nobody's even close to BMNR in terms of the amount because of the players involved, the investors involved. You know, Kathy Wood from ARK, Peter Thiel, you know, co-founder of PayPal. You got big names on this. Galaxy Digital. You got blue chip investors in this game. Okay, so that becomes super fascinating. Now, so if you look at a little comparison here, you got MSTR holds Bitcoin, and so it's like, you know, we look at Bitcoin as digital gold to store value, and then you got BMNR holds Ethereum, programmable money, and the backbone of DeFi and stablecoins. So MSTR strategy is buy Bitcoin, hold long-term, raise more capital through Stride and Strife and Strike and issuing common shares. And BMNR strategy is buy ETH fast. So they're buying it fast and stake it for yield and ride the adoption wave, because we know that Wall Street's moving in on it. We know that with the stablecoin laws on it, it's becoming, making ETH even more popular. And we know that people like Coinbase and Robinhood and already trusted groups are already making waves on Ethereum. So these are scarce, in-demand assets, and let's see if adoption does the work. So now, why does Wall Street love Ethereum? This is important. Here we go. Size and liquidity. It's the biggest smart contract chain. It has deep liquidity. The money's already there. 70% of the stablecoin market is there. They're going to where the money's at. Number two, trust. It's been battle tested since 2015. The chain hasn't gone down. It hasn't gotten hacked. It's battle tested. Programmable money. Endless automation for finance. You know, you take out the middleman. You know, that you can just have these contracts in there that are programmed in. You can program whatever you want into the chain, and you just like, you program the rules in. I gave examples of this earlier on, but you will start to see this in the future. Like, people's rent will all be done on this. You don't pay your rent, the rules in there, whatever rules written in there, and it follows it, and it could literally lock you out of your house. Not that that's a good thing. I don't want anybody locked out of their house, but you see the automation that comes into here and the technology and where it's going. Tokenization. And this is the big piece. This is really, 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 really big. It's just 24/7 markets for real world assets. Stocks are going to move on to, become tokenized. You have bonds that are going to become tokenized, and they're going to trade 24/7, 365. And Wall Street loves this. Imagine how much more money they're going to make. Whether you like Wall Street or not, I'm not saying I'm a big fan of Wall Street, but they're going to where the money's at, and I'm paying attention, okay? And then the yield, right? So again, the yield being when you stake on the Ethereum network, which I don't know when BMNR is going to do it or how much they're going to stake, but they're going to get a 3% yield and for doing that. And so that's kind of like the bond payment plus the upside of whatever Ethereum does. Ethereum goes up, BMNR is going to go up by more. Ethereum goes down, BMNR is going to go down by more, because that's the volatility of a company like this that holds ETH in their treasury, because it's super, super, super volatile. And if you want to know just like where, BMNR has done, it went up to 180. So when the announcement was made over the following days, it went up from like a $4, $7 where the stock was trading at. The announcement was made, it shot up like 1,000%. And then it went up as high as 180, and then it crashed back down. So it's been very volatile up and down. And so, who knows where the stock's going to go in the future. Right now it's trading around 52. If you want the ticker, it's BMNR. You can go search it. And that's basically where it's at. Okay. And you can also research on AI, kind of the trend of where the stock has moved if you want to take a look at that to see, because it's fascinating and interesting to look at. So BMNR is basically positioning itself as the Ethereum version of strategy. That's what they're doing. And Tom Lee, I think, is a great person to do it because he loves Bitcoin. He admires Michael Saylor. And this is not like a cutthroat, like we're going to be better than MSTR. This is just Tom Lee, just like admires Saylor, loves Bitcoin. 2012, 2013, he called Bitcoin when it was $100. He literally was one of the people who brought Bitcoin into Wall Street. So did Saylor, of course. He got Wall Street to pay attention. So it's just interesting. Like, he's got admiration for Bitcoin, admiration for Saylor, and he's doing something and being smart and copying Saylor's playbook. So where could it go? If you kind of look at the MNAV on it, I did a little bit of research on this. And again, don't take it's just kind of a hypothetical on this, but you kind of looking at certain times like a 4x move on BMNR compared to Ethereum. So, if and this is at certain times. So like when Ethereum goes down, you could have a 4x down, and when Ethereum goes up, you could have a 4x up. And this is just kind of an average pattern that I saw as I looked at it and did a little bit of research. But do your own research. And again, this is not financial advice. I'm not saying anybody should invest in this. I'm just saying when significant moves take place in the world of something that I think is going to be a future play, I take notice of it. And it's not very often where I stop and I'm like, I really want to know more about this. Like I did it with MSTR early. I did it with Bitcoin back in 2017. And now I'm paying attention to this. Okay. Because it's real. So why Wall Street's going all in? Let's just hit a few more points here. Another big reason why Wall Street loves Ethereum is instant liquidity. So when you move stable coins onto Ethereum, which they're already on there, 70% of all stable coins, the trade is done in seconds and is final. So that means the money is right there on the blockchain. It's ready to use. You're not waiting days for wires to clear, no bank middleman holding up the funds. And for trading, that's huge, man. Huge. So the movement of money, the settlement of money, the speed of money is a big reason why Wall Street's paying attention on this as well, which is fascinating, and this is it's just interesting how things can move. And again, as I said earlier, Solana's speed is faster than Ethereum, but you look at the adoption of Ethereum and where the money is and where the stable coins are, and now the trust of the stable coins being backed with a new law with the Genius Act, and now the dollar being tied to the stable coins, and there's vested interest of the financial institutions, there's vested interest of the government, whether you like it or not. That's where the big money's at. And so it's something to look at. It's not always the best technology. I was talking to my friends the other day, and one of my friends who sold a company recently for 500 million, and they're developing a new platform I have called Money Game. And I'm developing Money Game to make money simple and to make trading simple and to make the education about investments simple and put it all in a 5th grade language that makes it fun and makes it a game. If you want more information, there's a link down below and you can get on their early access list. But I was talking to him the other day, we started talking about the development of my platform Money Game. And I asked him, I said, hey, like, what's the reason why your company sold for 500 million? And he said to me, Ted, it's not always the best technology. It's the simplicity of being able to use that technology and the design and the aesthetics to it. Now, I'm not saying Ethereum has great aesthetics or great design or any of that, but I'm just saying it's interesting because there are many other platforms out there like his, but they chose his because it was simple to use and it was aesthetic. And then he cited other examples of, things that were out there, legal platforms. This one is so right. The technology is good. The data is better. It's way better than this one, but this one has more market value. This one is worth more. This one has more customers, and the technology is not as good. So ETH is the trusted platform right now because it's been around for a decade, and let's see what happens with it. But certainly we see larger institutions moving there. And in traditional finance, we know that settlement normally takes time after a trade, and it can be 2 or 3 days. On Ethereum, it's near instant. So that speed lets you flip positions, move collateral, deploy capital more easily, and Wall Street likes that. So it's not just speed, it's 24/7 access, and the markets on Ethereum never close. And if there's a big move at 3 a.m., you can pop in there and make a move now. And that's why the tokenization of stocks and the tokenization of bonds so they can move on the blockchain is huge. And that's where the puck's going. Institutions will have to do this. They will have to get into tokenization. They will have to get on the blockchain. Otherwise, they will not be able to compete. Forward thinkers like Robinhood and Coinbase do it right away because they're the early adopters. They're smart ones. They're already in the game. They can see where the puck is going. And then the more traditional institutions, they move slowly, but they're coming. So everyone else is building there, from stable coins to tokenized bonds. It already has the liquidity, as I said. 130 billion in stable coins is sitting on Ethereum. It's battle tested, 10 years of uptime and security. And how will some of these institutions get on Ethereum? They won't build their own blockchains from scratch. Instead, they'll partner with or copy already existing models. Like Coinbase has its model, Robinhood has its model. Soon it's going to be Fidelity, BlackRock, JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs. They're going to launch their own Ethereum 2 layers or use existing ones. And that's what's going to happen. So they'll just plug their trading desks in there and their customer accounts into Ethereum's rails, and suddenly they're 24/7 in the blockchain. And it's happening. It's coming. It's coming, and it's coming big. And it's coming faster than we think. And I think it's something to pay attention to. If you look at a year ago, how many Bitcoin treasury companies did we have? Like 12? And now a year later, we've got 170, almost 200. So that's a 15x of Bitcoin treasury companies in the course of a year. Now ETH treasury is at 12, about 12 corporate treasuries that hold ETH in it. BMNR being the one that has the largest holding of Ethereum by a long shot. Nobody even comes close. So what will happen with Ethereum in a year? What will happen with other companies putting Bitcoin or putting Ethereum in their treasury in a year? It's going to happen, and it's going. And when you get big money behind it, you get Wall Street behind it, you get stable coins because of the Genius Act behind it. Now the US government is pegged to it because the dollar is pegged to stable coins. You got some big stuff brewing on this, man. Big stuff. And with that said, BMNR is volatile as all hell. You could lose a fortune investing in something like this. And I'm just sharing it for educational purposes. And in summary of it, MSTR paved the way. So kudos to Saylor on his initiative, on his vision. It takes a incredible leader. It takes an incredible visionary to see something like he saw in 2020, to bet $250 million on it, to put another $250 million into it, and then 5 years later for MSTR to be valued over $110 billion. That's a big deal. That's 100x in 5 years. It's a very, very big deal. And so Saylor paved the way. He created the playbook. He handed it out to corporate America. He said, here it is. And Bitcoin treasury companies sprung up. And I think that now Ethereum is having its moment. And we know that there's other corporations out there that are adding other things to their balance sheet as well, and other crypto as well. But I think ETH, because of what's happening with, again, the stablecoin marketplace with the Genius Act, because of what's happening with BMNR and putting on their balance sheet, and the trusted Wall Street people involved in this, I think you're going to see Ethereum be the big mover next in terms of being on corporations' balance sheets, along with Bitcoin, of course. So that's the story. And that's the weather and the sports, my friends. So I hope it serves you. I see TC in there saying my three biggest holdings are MSTR, PLTR, and BMNR. Very cool. Love it. And it's fascinating to see what's going on. And do some research on it. Take a look at Tom Lee. Follow what he says about it, and I think you'll see that his logic and what he's thinking and how he thinks about it. Obviously, he put a lot of thought into this before he decided to create an Ethereum treasury for BMNR and get involved in a big way. And now that they've done it, I think it's a story to watch. And it could be a year from now, 4 years from now, it could be a move that changed, helped also change Wall Street and got Wall Street heavily into the blockchain as well. So we'll see what happens. Again, not financial advice at all, just here for a simple story to share with you. And in full disclaimer on it, I am invested in the company BMNR, and I thought it was just a story to share, not for any investment advice, just to share a story of when interesting things happen in the marketplace that are big moves. I think it's important for all of us to just pay attention and be educated and know what's going on. Because after all, money is a big part of people's lives. And there's lots of challenges in the world right now with the current financial system. There's lots of challenges with traditional financial products. There's lots of challenges with the printing of money. And it's really, really hard for people to get ahead with 10% rates of return because of money printing, inflation, taxes, debt. You just tread water with 10%. And so we have a new financial system that is being developed right before our eyes, and it's here, and it's not going anywhere. It's just not. And there's going to be more and more adoption of Bitcoin treasury companies. I do think that there's this talk of what could happen with the Bitcoin treasury companies. Is it going to be a bubble? And I think it's only a problem, if you have Bitcoin treasury companies that are over leveraged, it becomes a problem. Investing in a Bitcoin treasury company is very risky because you have massive amounts of volatility. And so the stock could drop massively, but the company could still be okay with its Bitcoin holdings. That's great for the company, but it's not great for the stockholders. So it's just paying attention to it. But I don't think that this is a bubble from the standpoint of you're going to have a ton of Bitcoin treasury companies come in and it's going to stop. My personal viewpoint is it's just going to get bigger and it's going to become the thing to do, where 5 years from now, you'll look at it and see exponentially more companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And it'll just be a normal thing where people hold a percentage of their treasury in Bitcoin. And it's just going to become a normal thing. And that may seem odd to people who are in traditional finance, or it may seem crazy to people in traditional finance. But if you look at the writing on the wall, it's super, super, super obvious. Super obvious. You're not going to pass up, over 4 or 5 years, the potential for Bitcoin to average 50% a year, or as it levels out, 30% a year. You're not going to pass up an average of 30% year gains over a 4-year period, or 50% for the next 5 years, or who knows more. You're not going to pass that up if you're a company for a 4% return on your treasury, sticking it in T-bills or sticking it in something that's yielding nothing and barely keeping in pace with inflation, and certainly not keeping pace with money printing. So it's going to become a necessity of survival for companies to do this, and otherwise they're sitting on a melting iceberg. And they're going to wake up, and it's already happening. So we are ahead of the curve here. We're certainly ahead of the curve with MSTR, because they were the leader of this movement, and BMNR is one to take notice of. That's the last thing I'll say on that. Okay. Again, hope this serves you. Have a great rest of your day. Not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice, just giving you some theory and education here, and hope it serves you. And I'll see you on the next show. And if you want to opt in for our money game platform that's coming out to make trading, make learning about money and stocks and crypto easier and faster, you can opt in. The platform is not out and ready yet, but when it is, you'll be the first to know about it. And you can just go down below, click on the link, and you will see a page where you can just get early access. All right. Hope it serves you, and stay very well.